Okay. The story that I'm going to tell is a story that I have never told anyone outside of my family. And they've heard this story enough that they're probably tired of hearing it. But maybe one more time it won't kill them while I try to share it with my church family. But usually when I tell this story, I get pretty emotional. So I'm going to try to do it without that. But if I do, please forgive me. But anyway, this took place in just before Christmas, 1961. So it's been a long time ago, but it's still fresh in my mind as if it was yesterday. My dad was a sharecropper. And most of you older folks is going to know what that is. And you also going to know that being a sharecropper, there's a lot of lean, bare winters that you had to live through, because by the time you shared the profits with the landlord, there was not a lot left. Well, this had been just an especially bleak year. The crops had not done well at all, which meant there was no money there. My daddy had a job that he'd picked up for the late fall and the early part of the winter, but when the job was finished, the man never paid him, knowing that he had a family at home that was in desperate need. But my dad's whole life went by, and that man's also, and he never paid him for the work that he did. But this was just a short time before Christmas, and like most mothers, my mother was worried about what she was going to do about gifts for the children. But she always was able to make do and come up with ways of doing things that they always seemed to get by. But just a few days before Christmas that year, my grandfather came over to see. He was my mother's father, and he brought her a package, and she opened that package, and he had brought her a new pair of shoes. And to this day, I can still see her face as she looked at those shoes and she tried them on. There had been no money that year for new shoes or coats or anything. Most of us were pretty much walking on the ground as our shoes wore out, our soles on our shoes. Daddy cut a cardboard and put in there, and of course the first day that it rained, we didn't have shoes anymore. He'd have to do it all over again. And knowing her, hers was probably in worse shape than anyone else in the family. But she had lots of outside chores that she did. She milked the cow and just about anything other than, I always got in the water for the family to use, and my brothers brought in firewood. But anything else just about on the outside was hers. So, but anyway, that year on Christmas Eve, Bobby asked Daddy for permission for us to get married. So he gave him his permission after stalling out for a long time and scaring both of us to death. But anyway, Christmas passed, and somehow or another there was gifts for all the children in the family. But then January came, and on January 12th, Bobby and I dressed up, went to the preacher's house and got married. And we came back to my house to pick up my belongings. And I had already packed up my clothes and everything I owned. I fit into a cardboard box just about this long and about this deep. And on top of that box was my mother's Christmas shoes. Of course, she insisted that I take those with me to my new home. And, of course, childlike, I was glad and proud to have them. Many years went by, I guess, before that really registered to me what a sacrifice that she made for me at that particular time. Because she wanted me to go to my new family and with new shoes and not anything to be ashamed of. And I know that she walked on the ground most of that year because of giving me those shoes. So there's a song that plays at Christmas time called The Christmas Shoes. And this is my story of the Christmas shoes. And a few years before she died, before time and her illness had taken her memory away, I asked her one day if she remembered that. And she told me no, she didn't remember that. She said, I remember Daddy bringing me some new shoes, but I don't remember giving them to you. And I said, well, you did, and I want to thank you now for what you did. Not just at that time, but all during my life, the sacrifices that you made. And to me, that was an example to me of God's love, that when He forgives us our sins, He doesn't remember anymore the sins that we've committed. We could ask Him if He remembers, and He would tell us no. And that's always made me think, when I think about my mother and her sacrifice for me, and her telling me she didn't even remember, reminds me again of God's love for me also.